Hello again. This is a continuation video for the airbag warning light delete for obviously putting in the aftermarket bucket seat. Obviously the aftermarket bucket seats, they don't have airbags fitted as standard, so your cabling from your car, that's your airbag warning airbag warning cable. So that tells your ECU and your computer that your airbag's plugged in and working and functioning properly. So obviously you have to sort of, I can't think of the word now, but you've got to confuse your ECU to think that it's got an airbag installed. So in my last video I showed that I kept the plug. This was on the underside of the standard seat. So what I've done for now is I've literally just, it's hard again just with one hand, trying to get the focus. So I've installed the resistor, just twisted it on for the time being, just to check that it worked. It did in fact work, but only when the rest of these plugs were plugged back in. If you remember, I kept hold of, let me just turn around, I'm a bit squatted up in here. I kept hold of the standard seatbelt clasp for the seat, so it had this loom attached to it. That's the standard plug for your, basically for the sensors that you have for when you're sat in the car. It picks up your weight and tells you to put your seatbelt on, all that sort of stuff. And there was this one here, which I actually thought would be sort of not required. Luckily I didn't chuck away the sensor that I cut off this frame, because without that sensor you can't actually get that airbag warning light to delete, mainly because this is a position sensor for your seat. So this position here determines when you have a crash in your car, if you have a crash, not when. So say your seat is slid to its fully forward position, depending on the severity of the crash, this will talk to your ECU, to the airbag ECU anyway, and tell you that your seat position is too close to the front. Do not deploy the steering wheel airbag, so it doesn't smash you in the face. But obviously in a big impact, your airbag for your steering wheel is going to go off no matter what, but this is just another little safety feature. So when I did the resistor in that cable that I just showed you 2 seconds ago, the airbag warning light, it flickered off, and then within a second it came back on again. So I was like, what the hell's going on here? So I just got the sensor, I dug it out of the bin, wherever it's gone. It's on the floor behind me here. So I kept the metal, I had the bit of framework. Your sensor actually looks like this. So what you should have underneath your car, under the seat, is this little piece of metal track that just basically clips onto there like that. And this sensor is installed in there, again tricky with one hand, but so that basically slots into there like that. They were that, in fact, those rivets I drilled out in the making of these seats. So this is like a magnet here, so this rail passes between that magnet and tells your airbag ECU as to what position your seat's in. So as soon as I plugged the yellow cable back in, like I said, the light came on. Stays on for the standard 6 or 7 seconds it is before you start your car, and then should go off again, which it did go off, but very briefly, and then came straight back on again. But as soon as I plugged this plug into there, it just went off straight away. So in my last video I told you, you probably won't need it, I won't need it, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. I'm very sorry if you have thrown it away, but in order to get that light to go away, you might need to keep the sensor. There might be another way of confusing or lying to your ECU by another resistor through here, but for me, for my purposes, I'm just going to click this back into place and then click that plug back on and and then fully solder this LED into this loom to delete all the warning lights. So that's what I'm going to go and do next. So yeah, I apologise if you have thrown this away. You might need to purchase another one, it depends. I can try and see if there's a way of confusing this for you, but at the moment I don't really have the time because of all the extension work I've got going on and needing to sort all that lot out, but I will try and help you out as best I can. Right, so what I'm going to do now, the bracket that I've got here with the sensor on it, because these have been drilled out, I'm literally going to spin it over, drill it out on this side, and then get rid of this peg completely, and then I'm just going to literally run a bolt through it with a little bit of a spacer. I'll probably just use a nut or something like that to space it out to the same as this. And then I can just use some small bolts, probably M4s or M5, something like that, and reinstall this bracket. Right, so what I've ended up doing, I've took the side rail off the seat again. I've kept that channel, so that locates in that slot and that slot, so I'm just going to tap that back into place so that it's back into place on the rail. The rail for that, the sensor, sorry, not the rail, the sensor actually attaches to there. So what I've done is I drilled out them rivets like I said I was going to, and I have installed some M4 riv nuts, just using my riv nut tool, and the riv nuts actually look, when they're not squashed down, if I can get in this box, the riv nuts, I'll show you a bigger one and you can see it clearer. So they look like that. You put a piece of threaded bar in the end of your riv nut tool and it squashes them down. It crimps it in between the two, like either side of the metal plate, like so, and it holds it into place. It basically just acts like makes a thread without actually having to cut a thread using a tap and die set. So that's where I'm at. So I'm literally just going to install that back onto there with some M4 threaded fasteners. I might just need to trim, because the gap between here and the thickness of the original, I'll show you, as you can see they're quite thick as opposed to these, so I might just run a few washers just to pack it out, just so that the edge of that frame doesn't rub against this spring and eventually wear it out. So I'm going to do that now. There you have it. The bracket's back in place. They're the little riv nuts that you can see. I'm just going to pick them washers out in a minute. To drop them. In fact, to do that now before I forget. There we go, two of those out. So yeah, they're the riv nuts in place. There's a sensor back in place and that track back in place, so it looks like on the other side. Technically you don't need to put all this lot back on. You can just plug this in and leave this dangling underneath your car, because it's only a sensor after all. It's just detecting whereabouts you are in relation to your seat being all the way forward or all the way back, whether your airbag's going to go off or not. So you can just leave this plugged in underneath your car just to get rid of the light on the dash. But I've put it back in place. It just keeps it neat and tidy and out of the way. Not that anybody's going to be kicking the feet underneath my chair, because there's going to be no back seats in it, but I just thought I'll stick it back on, and then there's no issues then later on with me dash lights. So, because there's nothing worse than having lights up on your dash that you don't need up, because they just irritate you. Don't know about you, but they do with me. So right, I'm going to go put this back in the car, back on the seat, and then the next job is to solder the resistor on properly onto the end of the cable there. So right, back in 2 ticks. So what I've got here, resistor wise, I'm going to use a fresh resistor because that one's a bit busted up now, so I've got hundreds of them, so I'm not too fussed. It is a 3.9 ohm 1 watt resistor. I bought a bag of 100 of them off of Amazon. I think they were about £4, so they're not very expensive, but that's what I used, and that actually got rid of the airbag warning light on the dash. So it's just going to be a process now of soldering this into place in that wire. I'm going to cut the wires into a set position. So instead of having the resistor going across like that, it's going to be in line like that, so it just keeps everything neat, nice and tidy. So I'll do all that, and then I'll show you the end result, hopefully. Right, so you have it. The resistor's in place. Always make sure that you put your solder, your heat shrink, so you can cover that bit. I'm going to do another little piece of solder that'll cover this end piece, and then a piece that'll go all the way over the lot of it. So watch this space. There you have it. It's all heat shrunk up. It's kept the cable nice and straight and just in a nice straight line, so instead of having a great big bulky bit on the end there. So let's go and get that installed. I need to reinstall the passenger seat, so I want to see if that had a seat rail position sensor, which I don't think it does, because the airbag on the passenger side is a lot further away from you because it's in the dashboard. So I don't think it actually has one. So I'm going to get this installed, the seat rail back in, and that seat back in. So hopefully I'll be able to show you the airbag warning light going off again. So I've plugged the wires back in now. The airbag wire that I made is there. The standard seat harness plugs there, and down the side, you can't actually see it, those two screws, that's where I've put that sensor on them. So obviously that all links to the standard cable that goes up to your standard seatbelt latch. I've also took out the passenger seat because I'm not going to need it, but in the process of doing so, there's another airbag there. So the same resistor, I've literally just thrown it in just to see that it works. I've took my steering wheel off because I wanted to change something on it, but as you can see, turn the ignition on, you wait a couple of seconds and the airbag light goes off completely, so you know that your resistors have worked. So there we go, nice quick easy fix for that. So I'll make up a new harness for this from the harness off the bottom of my other seat, and then I suppose the next thing to do is to start looking at getting rid of all this original GPS unit, which I've absolutely no idea why it's in here. I've never used it. The original stereo used to work with it, but I've opted for an aftermarket JVC one, so yeah, not required anymore. So yeah, watch this space, hopefully a few more videos coming up. Yeah, if you like my videos, give us a subscribe and then you'll get updates as to when I do them. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.